Who had the biggest fall from grace in history? Had you asked me a couple of years ago, I'd say Vidkun Quisling. He was one of the last men to be given the death penalty in my country, and his last name is listed as a synonym for a cowardly traitor in our dictionary. He essentially sold us out to the Nazis during WW2. The thing is that he was previously seen as a good humanitarian, traveling to other countries to help the poor with Fridtjof Nansen, a national hero who won the Nobel Peace Prize. But it has later been revealed, only a couple of years ago, that he was never a good man from the start, and was in fact always a vile opportunist regardless of what affiliation he needed to have in order to further his own reputation and build his own grandiose sense of self under the guise of his humanitarian work. He'd loot values from dead/dying people and give desperate starving people food scraps or pennies for very expensive valuables if he didn't just take them. He'd also take advantage of desperate young women. Those who had lost their families were the easiest targets after all. His first wife was a 17-year-old Ukrainian girl named Alexandra. Even his family members were confused about it. He also got a second wife, Maria Quisling. So in addition he was also a bigamist. Seeing the pictures and notes of what he saw in famine-stricken areas just makes what he did worse. In one of his photos he had visited a house with two starving boys, whose parents had presumably died, and Ike, the remaining boy in this picture, https://gfx, nrk, no/TF7SKF2DXLE0CNT3GDLWAGP4FG3EKQ002PC42 JPG, had eaten his 3-year-old brother. Google Holodomor if you don't know about this famine. The thought of this gut-wrenching despair not phasing a man, not making him question what he's doing, and just continuing on to prey on people, just makes me sick. I didn't think I could find a literal traitor to my country more deplorable decades after his execution. But learning what an absolutely deplorable opportunistic narcissist he was, just made him even worse. To think that he was a revered humanitarian at one point. I'm glad he was executed, though I wish they had paraded him around so people could throw tomatoes at him first. Edit, changed my mind on some details I misremembered from school and added link detailing some of the information that was revealed last year. https://www nrk no/documenta/excel/sakala jeans dom overlandsvikaran vidkun Quisling 1 15,457,168. It's in Norwegian, but Google Translate should do. The rest should be a quick Google search away. There are also some thesis papers available, but those are in Norwegian too. Close bracket. By the time I was a child, Bill Cosby was so universally recognized as an icon of wholesome comedy that one of the most popular kids shows of my youth was literally just a cartoon about his childhood. Now the legacy of that little cartoon show is tainted by the very subject of the show itself. That's a fall from grace. From being trusted to be a part of your kid's formative years, to becoming one of the most vile and disliked man of all time. I don't know how I didn't realize that little Bill was by Cosby until right now. Guess I just never paid enough attention. That's quite a stain on my childhood now. I thought you guys were referring to Fat Albert. Fuck, I'm old. Jimmy Savile. If you allow for posthumous falls from grace, let me paint you a picture. Here is the ultimate working class boy made good. He worked as a coal miner during the Second World War. Once that was over, he tried a number of things. He was a professional wrestler for a while, lost every match, was a pioneer DJ. He essentially invented the job and hosted a primetime TV show well into his 70s, based on the premise of fulfilling outlandish dreams for kids. In his spare time, he worked as a volunteer porter at his local hospital and ran marathons, raising millions of pounds for charities, attracting a slew of honors. And while he may have been a bit eccentric, he was widely regarded as a national treasure. That is, until a couple of years after he died. Turns out Jimmy had a thing for young girls. Quite a thing. As it happens, he made Bill Cosby look like the angel Gabriel. We are talking one step below wandering around the TV studios where he worked with a 12-year-old latched onto his penis. He'd got away with it precisely because of his public persona. He successfully persuaded almost all the girls he abused that nobody would ever believe them. He was never the biggest star, but Mark Selling's fall from grace was massive. Went from the star of a primetime show to charged with child porn and dead in a matter of months. On that note, Allison Mack went from the actress of the breakout character on a long-running popular superhero show to a cult leader who trafficked women for sex and forced labor, blackmailed them, branded them, and tortured them. There's also Grace Park, one of the stars of Battlestar Galactica and Hawaii Five-0, who was part of that cult too. I think she left though. One of her co-stars was and is still a big part of it though and actually married Mac. Nikki Klein. She was Callie on BSG. Most people are talking like the last decade. But Mary the First of England, https n wikipedia org/wiki/Mary_I_of_England came to my mind first. Overcame huge threats and obstacles to her right to the throne because she had the support and love of the people. She defeated the attempted coup, ascended to the throne, showed mercy to the traitors, etc. Then promptly married an unpopular foreigner and tried to force everyone to follow her religion. If they didn't, they got burned alive. Then hubby skipped town anyway, and Mary slowly lost her marbles and Calais and kept burning people alive. History tends to remember her younger half-sister Elizabeth I a bit more favorably. Edit. OMG, what have I done, my friends? Tudor history is awesome and dramatic and insane and tragic and very well documented by multiple contemporary sources. Go check it out. 100 years of more drama than you can imagine. For those saying Elizabeth killed more for religion than Mary did, here's someone who did some sourced, quick and dirty math. https://althinksRobertDudley, wordpress.com/2019/02/21/ did good queen best kill more people for religion and Bloody Mary / also Mary did all her executions over the space of her 5-year reign. Elizabeth I reigned for 45 years and still managed to execute fewer people. I'm still sympathetic to Mary I. Her life sucked for about 1,000 reasons. Important update here, user/u/Keith1USF has pointed out that Mary died on this day, November 17th, 1558. I'm pretty sure we all need to go into the nearest bathroom, close the door, turn off the lights, and say Bloody Mary 3 times. And just, hope for the best. Fred Phelps started his career as a celebrated civil rights lawyer in Kansas. Followed up Brown vs. Board of Education 20 years later, and ended up forcing them to implement more fair educational conditions for students of color. Went on to form the Westboro Baptist Church, which became one of the most despicable hate groups in the US. Notorious for their homophobia and protesting at military funerals. That church was one of the most reviled hate groups in the 90s and zeros. Ian Watkins, former singer of the Welsh emo/rock band Lost Prophets, massively successful band in the scene. Turns out he dealt meth to fans to abuse them and then rape their babies/toddlers. Yes, you read right. I almost threw up when I read the indictment. Locked away for life. That one. The band has erased all music from all services as far as possible. It tainted forever. I read the case file. Holy cow. And when asked why he did what he did, he said he did it for the lulz. His password was ifuckids, and 2 of the infants' mothers sold their own babies out to him. There are text messages detailing the abuse they were planning to subject the infants to, and remember one of his ex-GFs tried getting the police involved numerous times, only to be told to F off, and no investigations being done. And then when the cops finally did something, they tried to arrest her under the fed up aiding and abetting bullshit claim, which her lawyer fought because she had years worth of evidence against the cops showing she made an effort to report his sick ass. The whole case is one big police F up after another, like holy shit. Not the farthest, but Phil Spector is worth a dishonorary mention. This was going to my audition. The guy was a revolutionary music producer, creating the wall of sound formula. He produced music for some of the top musicians in the 60s and 70s, and retired very young to his mansion in the Hollywood Hills. In 2003 he murders actress Lana Clarkson, then spends the rest of his life in prison. I forgot he died in 2021. He also is responsible for some of the most infamous courtroom photos in history. Not to mention that long before he murdered Lana Clarkson, he basically imprisoned his wife Ronnie Spector for days. And after she divorced him, he held up the Ronettes in court so they couldn't perform any of their songs for the longest time, and they didn't get a fair share of royalties based on shady contacts he had drafted to take advantage of them in the 60s. Philippe Pétain was a national hero of France after World War I. He won the 9-month Battle of Verdun as a general and inspired hope and optimism at a time when it seemed like the war would never end. Fast forward to World War II, and he became the head of state of Vichy France and was a puppet for the Nazis. He ran Vichy state in a semi-fascist manner and constantly sought to appease the Nazis to preserve Vichy's limited freedoms, including signing anti-Semitic ordinances and allowing deportation to concentration camps. At the end of the war, he was convicted of treason on all counts and originally sentenced to death, before being reduced to life imprisonment by Charles de Gaulle on account of Pétain's advanced age and service during World War I. De Gaulle would later summarize Pétain's life as successively banal, then glorious, then deplorable, but never mediocre, and also the Marshal is a great man who died in 1925. The trouble is, he didn't know it. China had a similar person. Wang Jingwei was beloved for his role in the 1911 revolution, but is now viewed terribly for siding with the Japanese in WWII. His fate was different though. He died in 1944 from a wound he got from an assassination attempt in 1939. His tomb was destroyed by the Rock Army and his burial place now has a note that calls him a traitor. Sounds like that attempt got upgraded to delayed success. Jimmy Savile, mega famous UK radio DJ and TV presenter, did a ton of charity work, was a knight of the realm. Post-death, he was revealed to be a massive pedophile, protected and ignored by those around him for decades. Edit, Savile not Savile. Massive pedophile doesn't do it justice. He was one of the most vicious and prolific pedophiles ever in the UK's history apparently. He also fucked dead bodies at hospitals, if I remember correctly, because they gave him the keys to the morgue. In what possible universe does a TV celebrity need unrestricted access to a morgue after hours? I'm sure there are worse people, but Harvey Weinstein went from being one of the most powerful people in the world to be completely reviled and losing everything. This is the guy who had Meryl Streep and Oprah on speed dial and married to a woman 1000x too attractive for him. He now uses a walker, has lost his fortune and his reputation, and his D is literally rotting off. In case you didn't know, several of the women who accused him of sexual misconduct all pointed out that he wasn't really interested in sex per se, he just wanted massages. According to some, his hygiene was so poor he developed an infection in his dick, which then rotted the flesh. After being left untreated, he basically got gangrene on his genitals and was effectively impotent. Close bracket. He's been described as having fish-like genitals. Ike. WTF does that even mean? Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. Fatty Arbuckle was an insanely popular silent movie star that had a contract in 1918 for $3 million for 3 years of films, equal to $54 million in 2021 according to Wikipedia, an unheard of amount. In 1921 he had a party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, still there. Over the course of several days, Virginia Rapp ended up dying, possibly from a ruptured bladder. She, or friends. There seems to be different versions, which is a problem with this story. Accused Arbuckle of raping her. The newspapers went nuts, making up stories, spreading what little they had. Arbuckle had multiple trials, but was ultimately acquitted. He was dropped by the studios. Hollywood reacted by hiring Will Hayes and forming a censor board. Many of Arbuckle's films are lost because distributors and theaters would not play them. This is probably the only person I have seen on this post that was probably an innocent man. He was accused of raping Virginia by a woman who by many accounts was a prolific blackmailer and what appears to be the predecessor of Rupert Murdoch and the media who sensationalized it. After the third trial, which took minutes to acquit, the jury apologized to Arbuckle saying an injustice had been done. Aaron Burr. He was vice president of the United States when he shot and killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel. The duel killed Burr's political career. He was dropped from Thomas Jefferson's ticket in the 1804 election, and he couldn't even win an election for governor of New York. In 1805, Burr plotted to invade Spanish territories and create his own empire with a side plot to incite a revolution against the United States. In 1807, Burr was put on trial for treason, and he narrowly escaped a conviction. Don't forget, he wanted to cause New England to secede from the Union out of spite. Benedict Arnold, hero general of the American Revolution, one of George Washington's best assets, felt slighted and overlooked by his contemporaries, switched sides to the British, made no difference to the war effort, died in disgrace in England. His name is now a synonym for traitor. Edit, since this is getting some attention. For anyone interested in learning more about the man, I highly recommend watching Benedict Arnold, A Question of Honor, a TV movie from 2003, starring Aidan Quinn as Arnold and Kelsey Grammer as Washington. Arnold had 2 horses shot under him, including one at the Battle of Saratoga, where he was instrumental in securing victory at Bemis Heights. Arnold was going between the lines while being shot at, unharmed for most of the battle as he urged his men on until both he and his horse was hit with the final volley as the British were fleeing and the Americans were taking the important position. Arnold's leg was shot and broken by the horse. Following this, the British at Saratoga surrendered. This was a major inflection point of the American Revolution, showing Europeans that the Americans were serious and could beat the British on land, and soon foreign aid was given openly. Had Arnold been killed that day, all over the Northeast you would see statues to this man. Instead there is but one monument to his injured leg. https://n wikipedia.org/wiki/boot_monument in Saratoga that doesn't even say his name. Chris Benoit. He was famous as a pro wrestler until he murdered his wife and child. I remember when this came out I was in disbelief about what happened. Judd Fogel. He started and ended his career trying to get into smaller pants. Started with a mild cholesterol problem, developed a child molesterol problem. Odds has to be up there. What would the Terminator franchise be like if James Cameron didn't think he was too nice to play a killer? I'd be also curious what Schwarzenegger's career would look like without his most iconic role. That reminds me, I have to take my iconic 7 PM nap. Philip Paytain would be one good one. Excellent example. French hero of WWI to Nazi collaborator of WWII. Robespierre. His actual death was brutal. For those who don't know, he tried to kill himself, but was stopped and ended up only blowing his own jaw off. He then was kept alive all night with a massive facial injury until he was beheaded in the morning. Just before he was beheaded, the executioner ripped the bandages off his face, and only the guillotine blade silenced his screams. One of the major events that stands out during the French Revolution for me. Didn't he also face the blade of the guillotine instead of facing the basket? I remember something about the guillotine having people face the basket so they won't have to die a terrifying way. It is still terrifying though, and that they had Robespierre face the guillotine blade so that his death would be more terrifying. Jeffrey Jones Acker, the dad from Beetlejuice, Acker the principal from Ferris Bueller. Not the biggest, but Armie Hammer casually outing himself as a cannibal was pretty big. At it. There is a docuseries about it called House of Hammer. He outed himself. I thought women came forward, and he denied it. Jim Jones. He originally stood up for civil rights, then he became a cult leader. From a civil rights leader to cult murderer who was responsible for more than 900 deaths. He was always a cult leader. He was just helpful in utilizing his cult, in being able to influence politics, which made him useful to politicians and kept the cult from attracting negative attention. Harvey Weinstein. He was Hollywood when he got outed for the pose he is, but this guy produced, just naming the top 3, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, 2, every Tarantino movie except Hollywood, and 3, Good Will Hunting, and, subsequently, about every Damon or Affleck project from that time to his downfall. He's won more Oscars than any person could ever dream, and has made more money off films than maybe anyone ever. That guy, oh man, I think he fell the furthest. The hardest and the fastest. Well deserved though. Well F deserved. Yeah, but everyone knew he was a ref piece of S before the rape allegations / charges came out. He was known as an absolute monster in the industry. Falling from grace means you had grace to begin with, which he did not. Ye was the inspiration for an asshole producer character on the show Entourage. This was a decade before everyone knew that he was a serial rapist.